Hello and welcome to the Thriving Kids podcast. This week we have a special guest, Dr. Aliza Pressman, host of the Raising Good Humans podcast, fellow Dartmouth alum, friend of the podcast, and exciting conversationalist. So, that's a good intro, right? For at least this? Yeah, okay, good. So we are coming to you with this episode. We have decided to title this the Summer Hot Takes and Topics episode. I wanted to repeat the word hot, and I'm kind of divided on that still, so who knows if that'll be the title of this episode. But our focus here was for someone like Dr. Pressman, who speaks around so many different topics all the time, and for whom, when we recorded for Masterclass, they had us interviewed on about 50 different topics as well. What I figured was I'm going to take, in this case, we started with 13. For those of you who know that I'm working to expose myself to odd numbers due to my fascination with even numbers. We started with 13 topics. I accommodated you, but now it's 12. You eliminated one. We got 12 down. But we might not get to it. We might get to only an odd number of questions during the filming. But we are just going to hit on questions we know listeners have asked many different things about, and that we know also exist in the zeitgeist, that we see on social media, spaces where we're present. We're going to start with those.
Great.
So, fantastic. All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm excited to see you.
Yes, we're excited you're here on a day when you're apparently recording 3 podcasts. So this is, 2 of your own episodes and ours.
Yeah, this
so
is
thank
more
you for being
fun.
a guest. Yeah, exactly.
I shouldn't say that. I have fun with all of it, but this is different.
I think that oftentimes, there is, look, as someone who switches between host and guest as well, it is probably more fun to be a passenger on the bus than it is to drive the bus.
It's easier.
You just get to kind of show off. Okay, so to show off, we'll start with one question. I'm just going to pick at random. Why is gentle parenting everywhere? What does it mean, and should I be doing it? Let's start with that.
You know what's funny about gentle parenting is it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's everywhere, and it has a different interpretation based on whomever's talking about it.
Yes.
I think it is potentially problematic when it bends on permissive parenting.
Totally.
I'm sure many people who speak about gentle parenting are like, no, that's a misinterpretation. It's actually, respectful and gentle with limits and boundaries. So I think the problem is anything that's a movement in parenting is not rooted in science. It's just made up, and it's sort of parenting should not be a religion.
Right.
If it works for you, Godspeed. That
the parenting should not be a religion piece was it's very heavy.
Sorry.
No.
Let's start with heavy.
I like it. But no, because I think what it suggests is this idea that you take something sort of on faith, but to the point about religion. And granted, this is, something that I think about often, religion is often co-opted by those who have not read the literature and instead have interpreted it their own way.
Yeah.
And then say, this is what it means, even though if we go back to the source material, it seems really different from the thing that you're saying. And even then, to go back to the notion of gentle parenting, if we put ourselves in the age that we're in, can we agree that maybe one common element is this notion that we can listen to kids' feelings are valid, and we can kind of stay regulated in that place.
Yes.
Right. Which, to that, that's also not new.
No.
That also was a 1970s movement.
That's the thing. Also, I think that the zeitgeist and changing the names of different approaches and then reinterpreting them, when it comes down to it, it's still in its original form probably just meant authoritative parenting.
Right. Exactly. Well, it goes back to that kind of pendulum swing of I always think of parents will stumble across how to talk so kids will listen and listen so kids will talk.
Yeah.
Which was written at a time when the pendulum was swinging this way. And we're talking late 60s and early 70s, and a notion that I don't know, maybe we can make space for our kids and kind of be hippie-ish about it and listen to their vibes, man, and all that kind of stuff, as vibe also has returned in, the 2020s. So it's it's not a thing that's new to listen to your kids' feelings. I think that the way it gets, so the extremes we've seen, I think, are the notion of short clips that you'll see in television shows where there's a complete lack of boundaries in favor of this.
Yeah. And I think the misinterpretation might err on the side of feelings need to have a deep and long conversation at all times. And so you can end up turning it into incredibly indulgent, not in like a sweet way, but indulgent in a way that's going to like bite you in the butt later.
Right. And that notion that like the indulgence does not need to be indulging under time pressure.
Right.
It doesn't need to be indulging at bedtime. It doesn't need to be indulging when someone else was hurt.
Right. When there's another human being to factor in.
Right. To tend to.
I think that one of the interesting things about like talking about boundaries and limits, which is the sometimes missing piece of gentle parenting and sometimes not,
right,
is like, it's not just about the safety and like emotional and physical safety of your child. It's also of the other human beings that are there in the world. And so you can't just, even though we didn't have a center around children enough for a while, but it's been many decades since that's been true.
Right.
So I get like the premise of it is so important that your child is so, their feelings are important. And also, they're not the only thing that's happening in the world.
Completely. and you go back to a term, authoritative parenting, where, if someone is to Google this and say, okay, wait a second, if gentle parenting is actually supposed to be authoritative, what are they going to find?
They're going to get confused because authoritative parenting balances the sort of sensitivity of care and the beautiful thing that I think we think is gentle parenting with appropriate limits and boundaries. So I think that could surprise people. And it could also, depending on the person interpreting it, which is why you didn't ask this, but why social media can be a little tricky for parents is like people speak with tremendous confidence about how important gentle parenting approaches are for child outcomes.
Totally.
And it's just like not super meaningful.
And you and I both have the ability to speak with great conviction about various things. And I think about that oftentimes as, this is also, kind of packaged up in my white male privilege as well, because, which we do not share in that sense. But it's like, look, I come from a very confident speaking father. And so there are many times when I will notice that if I just say something with conviction, folks start to nod. And I'm nodding. Right. That's both wonderful, but it's also one of these things where when you see folks online start to talk about how like, here's what's really injurious. Like this is one of my things because I work in the field of like behavioral science and, kids who have challenging behaviors. I cannot stand posts about timeout because what I will see is people posting with conviction and they will be saying things that are not supported by the evidence around timeout, that timeout is, something that's emotionally injurious to a child, that it could be traumatic, this kind of stuff. And my answer is usually one of two things. Either A, no, that's not based in any way in scientific fact, or B, the way they're talking about it is not how we would actually ever coach a parent to do it. And so for that reason, it's sort of like saying like, I think cars can be traumatic for kids if you leave them running and let kids drive them. But like clearly, if you put the right boundaries around it, like it can be a more safe experience for somebody. But
which is why it's so hard giving short, hot takes on things because
even though this is summer hot takes.
Yeah.
Right here, right, exactly.
Right. I have to cough. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no worries.
But I'm not sick.
Right. Okay.
As you
famous words that people say is
just allergies.
Right. It's like really my eyes are tearing up. I'm coughing.
It sure seems like you're sick, but I'm really not. I really have terrible allergies.
Just to comfort you, all the plants in our studio are fake because our studio has to be good and soundproof, right, Chad? Yes, and we can't, we don't want to have like weird angles. So like pollen is at least low. There's no animals in here.
No,
and my wife's allergic to all perfumes and scents, so I'm also not bringing those in here. Well, for our podcast listeners who may or may not have listened to other episodes where I've disclosed my own struggles with anxiety, I think it's just also an empathic gesture toward me that you are trying to say, listen, let me cognitively restructure you in the moment before you spend the rest of this time just ruminating about whether or not this single podcast discussion will bring sickness and pestilence upon your house.
I promise you it won't.
Yeah, I feel like that too. And there's a patient of mine who's exactly like this, where I started seeing this kid during the pandemic and I was still masking in the office when I came in because my kids' schools were all like masking and everything. And the kid would come in, he'd be like, I promise you, like I'm allergic to everything. I just am always sniffling. This is always my sinuses. I will let you know if there's any other symptoms and then we'll go virtual. And I'm like, thank you.
That
like
was
we're
really
considering each
cute
other.
that he was
very nice.
paying attention to that.
A very sweet teenager.
But I tell anybody, I very much disclose if I'm sick or getting sick.
I mean,
Even
I think
if it weren't you.
I think that's a common courtesy as humans, like just to kind of, do that. Like, I would like people to do that more often. Hot take. Okay, let's get back to another question.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go to. I have screens in my house, lots of them. What should I be doing with them and with my kids? And I just want to say the reason why I picked this particular question is just that I like the way it starts, where it says, I have screens. Like, I do. Please don't make me feel bad about it. Like, I feel like the implicit messaging is like,
we hear
please
this.
don't make me feel guilty.
Yeah.
Like, they're here. Like, don't tell me what not to do with them. Just tell me like what to do with them.
It's a great approach, just thinking about what to do.
Yeah.
So
we also don't have the age of kids in this question, so we could take an approach there as well.
we could do a developmental approach. Like
Love
if
it.
you have infants or toddlers,
Yep.
I would save the screens for when they're not around.
There we go.
Then if they're older, I would only have one screen in use at a time, one activity at a time.
Yep. That you're engaging in likely together.
And it's together time. And so they're not alone with a screen. And ideally, they're looking at a screen on a wall if you're watching TV versus staring at like a portable iPad.
And our reason for that is also there is good research on eyesight, eye strain, and eye-related effects from close devices for all of us.
Yeah, I'm blind as a bat now.
and we're going to link it to that factor and that factor alone.
I am.
Not genetics. Or
Not
the fact
at
that
all.
my parents are both blind as bats, but it's the screens.
It's the screens.
That's it.
No, but I did lose my eyesight more after I wrote or while I was writing my dissertation. But I was also
I lost my sanity more while writing my dissertation. Just on a side note, I tell people that the way that I wrote my dissertation, P.S., if any of my dissertation advisors ever listen to this, I would go to a Brooklyn cafe while it was still a coffee house, and I would have an iced coffee, and I would write. And then around the time it switched to a wine bar, I'd have a glass of wine and the stuff would start flowing. The dissertation stuff would start going. I'd have a second glass of wine. That's really when it would pour out of me. And then I'd go home. So it would be an arc from a coffee through 2 glasses of wine. And that got the dissertation out there.
I could never have done that. I couldn't have done it. I would have been like, who cares? I'm going to just have my wine, and that's what would have happened.
I felt like the coffee legitimized my
wine.
later wine that got me there and made me feel like I was at least doing it in a legit way. But really, like 85% of the writing happened in the glasses of wine. That's it.
I just realized who your dissertation advisor was.
Oh, no, it's okay. My dissertation advisor was not my initial advisor in grad school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I ended up going and doing my dissertation at NYU with a whole new group.
Oh,
And in fact, our chief science officer at the Chalmers Institute and the head of our autism center at the Chalmers Institute were both part of
that cohort.
Helping with my dissertation. Our head of our autism center was third on my dissertation committee.
That's so wild.
Yeah, Dr. Adriana DiMartino. Fantastic.
That's cool.
Really came out of the woodwork to support me at that stage of my career. Anyway,
Okay,
outside
so
of that,
screens.
getting back to screens. So we're in kind of middle childhood, and we're saying together activities, share it, do the entertainment together. It's kind of family bonding.
Yeah. And, try to turn it off before bedtime routines and things need to happen.
We don't need it to get folded into bedtime routines.
No.
Is the key piece.
Because that's like having an espresso, maybe. Like
Yeah,
as
exactly.
part of your bedtime routine.
Well, we're
And
also
then you
training
argue.
yourself to self-soothe with screens, whereas we
Yeah.
want to be dependent on bedtime and coming down without it, if we
Yes.
can possibly get it there. Yeah.
And then the other thing is like, don't have screens on in the background while the kids are doing something else.
Yeah.
Because we know from research of like play research that actually changes the kind of play that the child's going to engage in.
And that's the thing is I walk into so many houses where it's like I don't want to fault parents for the fact that like, and there's a differentiating factor. Like I'll see lots of houses where music is on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And like music can also be a distracting factor as well. But sometimes it's also just for the parent's sanity.
Yeah.
So I don't want to
you
like
have to
stop them.
pick.
Right. Like I want to be like, look, I know you like the smooth jazz, but like,
Yeah.
and that's like giving you sort of like an ability to like play less Legos for long enough that you don't feel like you're going nuts. But then the TV on in the background is really a distracting.
It really is distracting. And then the other thing to think about is you're not always going to do joint, a joint television viewing and engaging. And
sometimes you need to cook while they watch a Disney show. That's what's up.
And it's just what's up.
Speaking from my own experience.
Exactly.
But yes.
So, and there's no evidence that the problem is like too much, too long, too alone.
Right.
But if you're thinking about that,
good, yeah.
you're going to be fine.
Right.
And you're aware of it. But we do.
And too much at night. I think you
night
hit that
is
point
just,
too. Yeah.
We don't do.
It's like, let's just get it out of the nighttime piece.
Even when kids get older, one of the things that we talk about screens is that for teenagers, they still need you to take it out of their room or put it somewhere where they're agreeing to, plug it in overnight somewhere that they can't access.
Right. Well, I think that relates to another rule that we could talk about, which is keep it in public spaces for as long as possible. And then there's going to be a time, let's be real for every parent. There's going to be a time when teenagers are going to find a way to get devices into their room, even if you say absolutely not. But we had the other night, my son just got a 3D printer for his birthday. And he took my phone and the 3D printer app into his room to go and look at designs to try to figure out what his next design is. He's printing an F-16 right now.
I mean, by the way, of all things to be doing, that's pretty cool.
Exactly. It's engineering, it's science. Of all the screen-based activities that we're using the screens for information, entertainment or bonding, this is definitely information and entertainment. Yeah. And we can bond over this. We can hit the trifecta of things that could be good uses of screens.
Yeah.
But I walked in his room and I said, what's going on? He goes, oh, I didn't mean to take the phone into my room because at 10, and he's also a rule follower, he remembers that I've said oh, we're not bringing the device into our rooms. But I also know at 13, he's going to be like, what? That's going to be it. So I have precious moments where we can focus on that for as long as we can and not getting them in the rooms. And then it becomes maybe not certain activities. Or maybe it becomes not at night or not infringing on sleep.
Or not at bedtime. The only thing I'm left with the ages of my young people.
Yes, your young people.
My young people is just not at bed, not for bedtime.
Yeah.
But that's about and I'm willing to make that concession because I care so much about it not being not interrupting sleep.
Well, and I think the other thing about the public space too is this notion of how it builds critical thinking and discussion. Is that it's not just I tell our kids, I don't just want you to be on the screen in the spaces in our house. I want to talk about what's going on the screen, what you're watching, what you're doing, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to them about why I'm not letting them do certain things.
Yeah. I'm laughing because one of the things that I do all the time, if I can, with the kids is watch whatever the latest show is. Yeah. So recently we were watching.
What are you watching?
Oh,
is it off campus?
Of course. That's exactly what I was saying. And
we are not watching this with our 10 and 7-year-old. No. Your young people are in the zone.
I have the best excuse to watch because I love nothing more than just a bunch of those teens shows.
Right.
But it's not appropriate for obviously the littles.
But does it engender certain discussions?
Yes.
Yes.
It's the best. However, if I make the mistake of starting the discussion or interrupting the scene because I want to make a face about it or say something beyond, squealing with delight at, something good happening. Because, by the way, off campus has very positive portrayals of a lot of teen, if you're doing romance, they really.
If you're trying to think about how we can model open discussions, advocating for what you want in romantic relationships, putting consent forward, I think there's a lot of themes there that we can cheerlead in off campus.
That was not the John Hughes movies.
Or Beverly Hills 90210.
Or Beverly Hills.
This
is way better.
Not to criticize Aaron Spelling. I just want to say, that I think rest in peace. I'm not sure. Yeah, exactly. But, the 90210 days, I think there were a lot of problematic themes,
Very. And so off campus, though it is, you just aren't going to watch it with children because there's lots of explicit, you just don't want.
Of course. Yes.
You're not going to want that.
We want to be clear. There's a content advisory on the discussion of this.
Yes.
That is the fact that we're in the teenage age range right now talking about teens and bonding over screens. Yes.
But when you are bonding over a show like Off Campus, if I interrupt to be wise and make, like open up a discussion, there's nothing that irritates teenagers more.
Totally.
But if I'm waiting for them to say something and sort of open a discussion, or we bring it up later, it's fine. But they're definitely on to me if, as the kids are drinking or something.
Right.
Not my kids.
The kids on the screen, the off-campus
the college
team.
students on the screen, and I start talking about like, you could never do that many shots or you would end up in a hospital. Or blacking out. That would not go over well.
Or I'm thinking about the way that I'm going to have to disguise my questions in a less therapist-y way if I ever watch this with my kids. Like, what do you think about its treatment of sexual trauma and like the level of disclosure or non-disclosure that's going on? Like, what do you think about that? So like, that would be...
You'll have to modify so much.
So much.
But it has been great, and the shows that have been popular for me that I have to watch them. Yeah. It's very fun.
I thought of that show because our son is a huge hockey fan.
Oh, no.
And so the issue is he wants to watch everything with hockey. Like his favorite movie is Miracle. And like, the 1980 U.S. men's hockey team is like, that's all he wants to talk about.
I want to get into hockey now because between that and the other hockey one, he did Rivalry, which is also not something I would recommend with children.
Again, an amazing piece of the American oeuvre of art, but not something you'd want to watch with any kid below the age of 17, 16, 15, that kind of stuff, right?
It's pretty... So if your child is into hockey, that could be tough. But I say then read the books because no matter how ridiculous...
I'm sorry, read the Heated Rivalry books?
Honestly, I would, if a kid is
I have not perused the novels.
They're very inappropriate for a child. They're extremely inappropriate.
Thank you. Yes.
And also, kids don't read anymore. So if they'll read one of these teen romances, even if it's inappropriate, I'm a little bit like... Because I don't get as scared. Right. Like visually seeing something, you can't get that image out of your head. I think Right. But I haven't read them. So this is my guess is like nobody should.
I mean, I go back to this where it's like, thinking about like content filters. Like obviously, I think you and I are on the same page about like the fact that there's differing levels of concern about content. Like I want to filter content on social media more than perhaps I want to filter content that might occur on TV that we could watch together versus, how much I want to filter content in books. I still remember, and I've talked about this in public forums, maybe not the podcast before, but like part of my awakening to understanding different things that could show up around like off-campus or heated rivalry themes was that my parents had a set of bookshelves at our home, and there was a very high bookshelf. And on the high bookshelf were certain novels by authors like... God, I think I'm messing up the author's name. Judy Blume.
I was just about to say, obviously you're talking about Judy Blume.
I think it was Judy Blume, right? Yeah. Is that what we're talking about? They were kind of like some of the romance novels of
Forever by Judy Blume.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like the first introduction we all got to really losing your virginity and all of that stuff.
And so I went to the top shelf in early adolescence of this bookshelf and started secretly reading these books. And like, I remember having the thought like, oh my God, is this what like a woman's perspective is on some of these things?
Oh, that's
because I'd never read women characters, think about this. Yeah. And so like, that was
like worth the totally inappropriate content.
Well, if we could if we can validate that decision on my part as in early teenage years, yeah. I mean, like, I wasn't watching it. It wasn't like in a show. It wasn't an image that I couldn't get out of my head. But it like stuck with me as like, whoa. Like, people can think about this, and people can think about this across all kinds of different ways, very differently than I do or as my experience. It was exercise in perspective taking, really.
Yes, I like that.
Good times. So what age do we think heated rivalry novels are appropriate for?
I mean,
hot take.
Probably
right. Really hot. Right.
Not till 16 plus.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Right, exactly. Like we're talking about, like, I'm not going to have Parker or Liv go for this right away.
Yeah.
Like, go for these things. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so back to screens. Any last points about like what parents should do or could do with screens that might be positive?
I think if parents could use screens the way they want their kids to use screens.
Ooh, good point too.
That is so helpful.
Yeah.
And I remember when my oldest, who's almost 20, was making a Lego of a BlackBerry. because I must have been, this was like before I guess I had an iPhone.
Yeah. Well, it must have been because BlackBerry's pretty much died the second the iPhone
Yeah.
came along.
I think I was a late.
Yeah.
I
You were a late
actually-
adopter of the iPhone?
I was,
Yeah.
because I really was attached to my
Absolutely.
BlackBerry. But
I mean, I still, to this day, I would prefer keys that I can feel and not keys on a screen. I'm with you. Yeah.
So but I remember seeing her pretending to, that she wasn't using it to talk on the phone. She was using it to pretend type.
Yep.
But she couldn't have been older than 4. And
Yep.
I definitely was like, I'm doing this too much in front of her, that this is her Lego.
Right. My favorite moment of this, where I realized like what our kids are exposed to and what they aren't recently, is that we just got both of our kids tin cans, which are these very viral, phones for kids that you can authorize every number coming in and authorize the hours they call. So it's great.
So cute.
Our kids have all their relatives and all their friends on their phone list between 8:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. Calls can be made, but after a friend first discovers it, it pretty much tapers off.
Yeah.
Only grandma's calling at this point. But the crazy thing is they don't know how to talk on phones.
Right.
Because my generation of parents really don't like the phone. Like, we don't want to talk on it. I only talk on the phone for work. I don't talk on the phone to friends in general. And our kids know that. And then when we do talk to like grandparents, we've done FaceTime and Zoom, because a lot of that came about with our kids during the pandemic. So the first few days that our kids owned tin cans, they didn't know where to put the receiver. They didn't know where to put it near their ear.
They're like, where's their face? And if I think about it, my daughter who's in college has never not FaceTimed me.
Right.
She never would just
Like,
call.
right. Like,
Look,
this,
I don't even-
this is how I talk to my mother and father.
Yeah.
Is like this. And yet my own children don't know how to hold a phone to their ear. Like, my daughter thought her tin can was broken because she couldn't hear her friend. And then it was kind of like, oh no, honey, it's not broken. You just have to hold it like right here. And she's like, why? I should just be able to hold it here and it should talk.
That is
And it's like,
so interesting.
that was it. Yeah.
So we have to be careful about the screens, but
There's competencies to build, and then there's also the things we don't want them to be too aware of, like building a BlackBerry out of Legos so they can be like mama.
yeah.
That said, our daughter did just at the dinner table last night tell Dylan that she doesn't want to be a brain scientist because it sounds very, very complicated. And she thinks that maybe it's just too complicated. And she told me that she doesn't want to be me because hearing about people's feelings all day sounds like it'd be very, very difficult.
That is
That's it.
probably true. Both of those things she's noticing are true.
We couldn't argue with her perspective. Being a brain scientist is complicated, and hearing people's feelings all day can be difficult.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. Yeah.
But let's see. I mean,
Well, she's going to be Simone Biles. We didn't want to tell her that being Simone Biles might be more difficult than either of the things she's currently not being difficult around. Okay, next question. What is the value of boredom for kids or loneliness?
boredom, I so want our kids to be bored
Yeah.
because that's when all the cool thinking happens. Except if you're a teenager, I think it changes a little bit, and boredom plus total freedom could be
A little bit too much idle hands time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for younger kids or teenagers who still have relative containers,
Right.
I think it's so critical. I'm surprised at how unpopular it is. Like, I know parents will flippantly say they believe kids should be bored,
Yeah.
but they also get so worried that they're going to be bored. And that's when you do bring a screen to going out to dinner, or you do schedule them with structured everything all the time.
Totally.
And then there's no time to be bored.
Well, it's also, I think, a reaction to a parent's anxiety. Like, it can be really tough to sit in boredom with your kid and wonder, are they going to get really annoying? Are they going to get into a mood? Am I going to be managing a bunch of stuff? Makes perfect sense.
But I think if you don't practice, like if they haven't practiced being bored while you're reading the newspaper, then they're definitely not going to tolerate being bored for longer stretches of time.
And on that note of closely related states, this I think also goes back to our question about gentle parenting, where it's like, I see a lot of parents who like are very much focusing their validation on like inside out emotions, like anger, sadness, joy. What are the other inside out characters? Disgust. Yes. And then wait, are there any more? I haven't watched
Fear.
Inside Out in a little while. Yes, fear. How could I forget anxiety? Of course, right? But so, and we're focused on that, but it's like boredom or the feeling of kind of like waiting for something. Or
Well, they did have ennui
That's true. They did have ennui. That's right.
for the teenager.
I do love it. Yes, that is absolutely true. But like, again, if we're focusing on these emotions, like what do we think is the value also of like waiting, for example? How much do you see your kids waiting for things?
Well, since they've all grown up with, I need this, so I ordered on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, right.
And it appears fairly quickly.
Yeah.
It's like probably the one thing, because we over romanticize, I think, the past.
Yeah.
Right now, that's going around quite a bit. Like back in the day, it was so wonderful. We got to do all these things, but I don't know that it was so wonderful.
Right. I think it's a common generational thing that we
Yes,
start to
that
be
happens
like, well,
every generation.
here's what's up. Right.
However, I really loved longing for things and waiting for things and wishing for things. And I'm sad that none of our kids will experience that same, even to wait to talk to someone or wait to receive a letter.
Totally.
Or wait for whatever it is. I am a TV show, even.
Yeah.
I'm bummed for them that they don't have to wait for anything.
Completely.
So I think we can artificially create barriers so that they have to wait, but that requires us to be quite disciplined.
Absolutely. Because we really, it's working against kind of
Everything.
where the frictionless society kind of exists. Now, you made me think of waiting for Dawson's Creek episodes to come out.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
the
like
waiting.
a really exciting,
Yeah.
annoying, but just that longing, like, it's such a cool feeling, and it feels so young.
well, and the reward and the payoff's bigger.
Yeah.
I was reflecting on this the other day with Spotify. It's that like our kids can just listen to any song anytime they want.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I would have to wait until it either came on the radio or I had enough money to buy the CD.
Yeah.
It was two things.
And then
you know.
you really appreciate it in such an incredible way. So that I do think of the nostalgia that we talk about. That's probably the thing that I feel most nostalgic for.
Is the waiting. Mm-hmm. Got it.
The longing and waiting and boredom.
The longing and the waiting.
I'm never
right.
bored, I'm never longing, and I'm never waiting.
Well, this I think also relates to the tolerance and kind of the stress tolerance of negative emotional states, where like if we talk about the most common conversation that I have about friendship with kids, it tends to be this notion that like there are periods of life where you will be lonely, and there are periods of life where you will feel included and you will feel like you have your friends, but that's completely typical.
So along those lines,
Yeah.
to go to that part of the question, I do worry that we have given the impression that you're supposed to feel completely socially protected and cared for, and that's like the normal experience.
Right.
And that you're like, there is an expectation that everybody's doing something on Friday and Saturday night. And I think teenagers and I don't know. I don't know that I would say this about young children, because they'll take whatever's around.
Right.
But I think as kids get older and middle childhood, paying it, like sort of noticing when you're feeling lonely and being able to decide what you want to do with that is an incredibly important skill. And I think about kids in their 20s and how lonely that era can be.
Absolutely.
If you haven't found out that that's totally normal, that could be so harmful.
Right. And I think you bring up a really salient point of teenagers who can see through comparison effects what looks like everyone else having a crew of close friends and being included, when that may not necessarily be the average.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like watching Heated Rivalry. Mm-hmm. To go back to Heated Rivalry.
Absolutely. We need to make this, I mean, it is summer hot takes and topics, and Heated Rivalry fits with our overall theme. I like the through line. Keep going.
So even watching that, I was conscious of the fact that it looks like in college, you have a group of friends who are always there for you. You always have
Wait,
plans.
we're talking about heated rivalry or off campus?
I'm talking about off campus.
I was going to say, because in heated rivalry, I feel like there's
Heated
a lot of
rivalry, there's
loneliness.
a lot of loneliness.
They're alone in hotel rooms.
You're
like
right.
part of the reason why these guys connect
You're right.
is like that
I
feeling of
totally
like,
screwed up.
yeah, okay, great. Go back to off campus. Yes.
But I think in off campus, the sense is like there is a group for you that's 24/7.
Yeah.
And
Like he walks back into that house and he's got these ride or die bros
Yes,
and one of their
every
sisters
time.
all the time as he walks back into the house. And I'm kind of like,
that is not going to
know.
necessarily be the experience.
Right.
So I always do, that is a conversation that I try to have, again, not when we're watching.
Yes.
But it is so tempting to be like, that's a very idealized version of what the experience is like.
even though both of us loved our college experience at
God,
Dartmouth, but you know, but to that point, I can love the entire experience. And there were periods of time in college where I felt like I was very rudderless and kind of finding like exactly the kind of group that I wanted to be with, the kind of people that I wanted to hang out with, the place where I felt most included and appreciated, like all that kind of stuff.
And I think that's another point about loneliness is
Yeah.
it can drive you to figure out what you want
Yeah.
and how to get it.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time thinking about that while on foreign study term. That was
Yes. Oh
yeah,
my God. I was just
deeply introspective time.
I was in Paris
Yeah.
for recently, and I
Yeah.
was in Paris for my study abroad. And I was so by myself in Paris at the time.
Have we never talked about this? I was on Paris and study abroad.
No way.
Did you do the Paris FSP?
I didn't do the FSP.
Okay. It was an LSA at that time? That was what it was?
No, it
Sorry,
was,
folks.
oh,
we're now
actually,
descending into Dartmouth speak.
It
and-
was an
yes.
FSP.
There you
Sorry,
go.
it wasn't. I thought you were talking about
Yep.
language.
Yeah.
I was alone most of the time.
Yeah.
And I like loved it, but also was like, this is quite lonely.
I was somewhat depressed and also appreciating it. It was very,
Yeah.
it was very confusing,
It's a confusing
to
feeling.
sides because I felt quite alone, and also I felt like it was quite a valuable time
Yeah.
of like considering where I was, because it was a kind of juncture in college where I needed to kind of like consider what my path looked like, and to be alone was to give myself that reflective space.
And to be alone in a beautiful, incredible place filled with
A place that seemed almost tailor-made for a level of philosophical reflection.
Yes.
Yeah. And
So-
I did not smoke cigarettes, but I felt almost like I should be
Yes.
in a small French cafe where I go,
Yeah.
la vie.
So it was like
You know.
the feeling was, it matched
Yeah.
feeling a little bit rudderless. However,
Yeah.
I don't even know if, like, I could see parents being extremely panicked if they thought their child was experiencing a era like that.
Yes. But I think that also goes back to how much access we have as well. Like, I would send an email from an internet cafe, once a week back home, like a little, like, Periscope depth, and
Yeah.
I'd send kind of a communication. And at times, I had a phone, a little flip phone that I could add credit onto and then call somebody with, from France. But for the most part,
That's it.
that was it. Yeah.
So I long for that feeling for kids while also understanding that some kids are experiencing too much of it. And
Completely. Yeah.
that really does need
It didn't stop me from having a few panic attacks while I was in France. But at the same time, it still contributed to some level of resilience in, like, thinking about this, where you also look at a parenting generation where I'm going to be actively trying not to search my kid's location all the time, but I'm going to have it.
When my daughter went to college, I never had Life 360 until the summer before she went to college. And she was traveling through Europe by herself.
Yep.
That's not true, with friends. And I was like, I have spent your adolescence being the parent that was like, I'm not going to stare at your location. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah.
Whatever the phrase is.
Yep.
But then the idea of not knowing her location in a foreign country,
Multiple
threw me
foreign
over the
countries.
edge.
Indeed.
Multiple foreign
Yes.
countries.
Yeah.
And it was so compelling.
Yes.
I watched it as if it was heated rivalry. I just would watch
Yes.
her location.
Yeah.
And then when she went to college, she was like, if you're going to watch it regularly, I think I should turn it off. And I was like, I know you should turn it off. Having said that, if you kept it on, I will not take advantage of that. But if you needed anything, maybe I would know. And I did start to get like really attached to the idea of knowing where she was. But I succeeded through high school not knowing.
Yeah.
And being pretty cool.
So wait, is it on or off?
I don't know now because I've actually, like, I check every couple of weeks and sometimes it's on and sometimes it's off.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, look,
it's the best I can ask.
It relates to all kinds of themes around differentiation and independence. It's like, what I love is that you're giving yourself a certain level of grace. See, we have an alarm going off for something. This is apparently that your phone was reacting to you giving yourself grace. It was like, no.
That phone was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that it also shows the thing where, like, you know, we're constantly talking with parents about different pieces of advice they might receive. And the notion that perfection and application is not really necessary.
It can't be. Or,
right.
Yeah. Well,
it can't be or.
Well, I know that I think we have a lot of content knowledge about maybe the best approaches to certain things, and I don't do many of those things as a human.
Absolutely.
Or like I can't do them all the time. I think the only thing that I can do is know a little bit more when I'm blowing it, but it doesn't necessarily shift my behavior.
Your line is almost exactly similar to my line. My line is, my instincts are still the same, but I'm better on the rebound.
Yes.
That's it.
That's a great line.
Because it's like, I'll lose it with the best of them. And then I'll be like, what would I say to somebody if I was in the office advising me? And then the answer would be, not that.
Yeah.
And like that kind of stuff. Like, I'll be more likely to, like, you know, think, oh, I've had a really rough afternoon with one of our kids and I have not been the best version of myself that I would like to bring to that. How do I, like, rectify that in the evening? That isn't to say they're still like, what has been wrong with you today?
Right.
Like, you know, you are clearly supposed to know this stuff and yet you are not.
Which is but I think that that's a really good message for our kids because we cannot be perfect.
Yeah.
Even when we have a lot of information.
And it's this notion of, like, the arc of justice kind of bending toward the value. It's that, like, if you want your kid to be independent, for the most part, the kid we're describing right now has been without their parent being able to keep, like, you know, NSA level tabs on them. But there have been periods where you've been like, we're going to use technology for good, just to decrease, you know, the level of, like, anxiety on my part, even though you might be perfectly capable of this in some level.
For me.
Your allergies are hitting you
my
again.
My allergies are back.
Or I've just brought you to a really reflective place about your kids.
I'm sad because,
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So
it's going to be 4 days before you believe that I'm not getting you sick right now.
No, not at all. I believe you. I trust your own knowledge of your body, and I want to trust that wisdom, and we're going to go with it. But here's the way we're going to bring this in for a landing, because that alarm did tell you that you have to leave to go record another podcast in 8 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the following. 2 lightning questions.
Oof,
and the first one is going to be, let me think. What are some experiences of failure kids should actually have? Give me 2 or 3.
Not getting invited to a party, not making it on a team, not listening to their parents.
That
third
one's
busted.
hot. Yeah, exactly. They're getting busted. Yes, to do with that.
Sorry, that's the important part.
I was going to say, my one that I kept thinking you were going to say was getting broken up with.
Oh, like, I forgot.
Or having a
that.
relationship end in flames.
Relationship ending is very important.
Exactly. And knowing they could have handled it better, and maybe the person would have stayed around, but it's done.
They blew it.
They blew it, yeah.
Interestingly, I was just with a teenager who is not my teenager.
Yeah.
But I love her so much, this kid. She's my friend's daughter. Mm-hmm. And she was broken up with via text. But it was like not clear if it was a breakup.
Oof.
But it was sort of a breakup.
Right.
And then, you know what? I realized I can't tell this story because it's too specific.
Oh, I see. Wait, so far all I've got is teenager broken up with over text. Unclear. I don't think any of those are identifying details that can allow us to trace this. But was in the telling of the story, was this going to identify somebody?
Well, it was, what I'll say is it taught her, first of all, how to break up with someone.
Yeah.
not via text.
Absolutely.
It doesn't feel good.
That's a lesson that you can learn about how this feels on the other end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also a lesson in, how important communication is and clarity.
Absolutely. And the grace of giving other people that clarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
The grace of giving people clarity.
Yes. And not make it just be like, not feeling it, vibes not good.
Right.
Text.
Right.
Which I have seen as breakup texts. Text almost exactly like that, where I'm like, what does this mean? Does this mean we're not going out this weekend? Does this mean we're not hanging out anymore?
Yeah.
Is the situationship over? What's happening? Yeah.
It's very...
I'm not even sure if I use situationship right on that, but still.
I think you did. It's all very confusing.
It's difficult for us.
It's really confusing.
There we go. Okay. Last question. Are we talking too much about emotions? I just figure this is your wheelhouse, so I'm going to end on that one.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. That I feel like that
Even
is
though
the most
emotions are
hot take.
important.
Right. Exactly. Okay. But why are we talking too much about emotions?
Well, I just think, by the way, I should say, I don't know that this is happening everywhere.
Yes.
But it is happening in the spaces where people are thinking consciously about their parenting and being thoughtful in general.
Yeah.
It's probably not happening all across the globe.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't think emotions are as popular for everyone.
Amongst the active listeners to Raising Good Humans
Yes.
and Thriving Kids,
There is
we
too
are
much
perhaps
emotion.
talking about emotions too much.
Yes.
And just in one sense, why do you think that is? What is it that is going awry here?
I just want to make sure that kids don't grow up thinking feelings are dangerous or an emergency.
Okay.
And if we drop everything
Right.
at all times to honor feelings,
Right.
I'm worried that there's an accidental message
Right.
that goes beyond your feelings matter
Right.
and beyond I'm here and available
Right.
to they're the only thing that matters. And I just want to make sure for the health of our kids
Right.
that we've figured out some balance.
Absolutely.
And I am at the same time very guilty of having lengthy conversations.
Sure.
Should any feeling arise.
Right. But we've already talked about how walking the walk is not our strong suit.
Not my strong
It is
suit, yeah.
speaking confidently about things that we may or may not do in
I
real
can
life.
give amazing
Yeah.
advice.
There we go. That's fantastic. And then in talking about feelings, I mean, look, you said something that I think was really good. We don't want them to be dangerous, so in that sense, there should be some talk. You're not rejecting feelings. You're not telling kids
No.
not to feel feelings, but you're also not making every feeling into an urgent situation that must be double clicked upon, or else, if
else
we don't
what is
pause
gonna
life.
happen?
Right. Yeah.
Because I also,
Yeah.
we need to be able to redirect. We need to be able to say, I am going to address this, but I can't address it right now because
Yeah.
it's not the time that works for the whole world here.
All I'm hearing these final hot takes is that people can go and listen to our podcast with Jennifer Wallace. Both of us have had her as a guest because we talked a little bit about mattering, but also the notion of you can't matter all the time. You can't always
Yes.
feel like connections. Both of our podcasts with Mark Brackett because we can talk about other
Dealing with
emotion
feelings.
regulation strategy, dealing with feelings. Right. So it's basically, if we just go and look at any common guess that people can AI, there's a lot
There's
more
some
to also
themes.
talk about,
There are some themes that
we all do kind of evolve together a little bit in the science there.
Yeah.
So with that, Chad, thank you so much for giving me a concluding line here. For all of you that Chad is telling us, our producer, that we need to wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for joining us today on Thriving Kids. Thank you so much, Dr. Aliza Pressman.
thank you.
Yes. And thank you for joining us on all the different forums that Thriving Kids you might find yourself on, whether on Apple Podcasts, now with video, on YouTube, on Spotify, or wherever else you're tuning in. You may be listening to us as a way of going to sleep, because I think the dulcet tones of our voices, even when you have allergies, are pretty great.
Oh, I think my voice could put anyone to sleep.
There you go. Me too. We'll see you all next week, and good job in Slumberland.
Except if you're a teenager, you shouldn't have the phone in your
Exactly.